right, it's fully snorkeled. Let me talk you through how I did it. This one's a little different because I didn't have all the PVC pieces I wanted, and I also wanted to keep this pipe as high as possible so that the plastics will fit over it with minimal trimming or no trimming, because usually this pipe hits right here where these green marks are. So I tried to tuck it up higher. That's what the extra bends are for. So anyways, here's the crankcase breather, uni, 5/8 filter, 5/8 male-to-male nipple, 5/8 line, into the airbox through a hole I melted in it. The normal crankcase breather hole is plugged with a cap. The reason we do this is to get this to the top of the airbox. That way, unless you completely fill up your airbox, you don't get water in your oil. You can hydrolock the engine, but still not have water in the oil. If you flip the bike over, the loop in here, some people say it helps. I don't really buy it, but definitely doesn't hurt. So I put the loop in the airbox. A lot of people put a loop like right here, and I've seen the loop get caught on the exhaust and melt a hole in the crankcase breather, or rub a hole in it on the heat shield, and then you have a water in your oil. So don't do that. If you're gonna put a loop, put it in the airbox or don't do it at all. Okay, so that's the crankcase breather. That's the most important vent on the machine. Then the air intake, come over here. There is a 2-inch coupler. You can see the white piece right there. 2-inch coupler that's ground down to fit perfectly into the factory airbox boot. And then there's a little rubber spacer on it. And then there's a 2-inch rubber coupler here. Then there's a street 45, Yes, I could not find these in PVC. Just a 3-inch piece of pipe, a regular 45, a 2-inch piece of pipe, and a regular 45. That gets you out around the engine and also gets you tucked up as close to the gas tank as you can get it to help the fenders fit better. Then you come up here, that's the same pipe, comes out there straight. This is a 60 and this is a 22.5. A 90 was a little bit too much because this is this angle, the snorkel needs to be straight up and down, so you need a little bit less than a 90. A 90 would put the snorkel pointed back this way. And then that piece right here is just a 2-inch piece that pokes through the plastics about 1 inch. So you see how the plastics are pushed down slightly for that clamp? The plastics are helping secure everything. Then this is just another 2 to 2-inch coupler, 2-inch pipe into here. And it was really solid with just that, but if you have any twisting side to side, it'll loosen up that boot in the airbox. Bouncing forward to backward is pretty good. I got the zip tie right here, so that's not going anywhere. But to the side, I put a little bracket with a hose clamp. Boom. Pretty good side to side. You can shake the bike with it. It's pretty good. Also, if I hit this with my face, or if a tree hits it, it'll just pop out of the clamp right there. It won't break anything down here. This clamp's not super tight, and there's not a big piece of metal to impale myself on. So screwing the plastic on the way a lot of snorkel kits do it looks great, but if you hit a tree, it's gonna snap, and then you can't put it back together. You want it strong enough to where it doesn't flop around and drive you nuts, but weak enough where it's not gonna hurt you if you hit the snorkel with your face. You want it to have some give, right? It just seems like common sense to me. But anyways, this vent up here is the gas tank vent. The reason I did it this way is because if you overfill a Rubicon, they like to spit gas at you. So if you take the vent and you put it in here, pointed down into the snorkel pipe, that fuel will just get into the airbox and it'll get breathed in the engine. More power, not really, but keeps the gas from getting in your face, and it keeps that vent very high. In here are the vents for the front diff, the rear diff, the fan, and the coolant overflow. And we just capped the weep hole for the water pump there. And yep, I'll show you how I did all this other stuff too, and I'll put a few extra videos, tips and tricks. So when the airbox cover goes on, this filter sits right here, like so, at the very top of the airbox. Very cool. So all I got left to do is put the airbox cover on, put the plastics on, and then throw those Aztecs on right there, and then we're ready to roll. Ladies and gentlemen, it is snorkel time. One of my favorite things to do is snorkeling four-wheelers. I don't really do it for other people very often because it's very time-consuming to do it right. But when you do it right, it's pretty satisfying. So we're going to run a pipe from the airbox intake down here, along the side, up here. Nothing fancy, same way I've done it a million times. And right now, it's really hard to find ABS pipe. And I was tempted to just buy a snorkel kit because it's just hard to find the pieces. These are the pieces I had laying around in my garage, which is almost enough. I bought this piece of pipe, had it shipped to the store. Ace Hardware had it. And then I bought some PVC from Ace Hardware as well in case I needed some other angles because I couldn't find any other ABS anywhere. Stuff online has like a 2-week lead time. So this would be the airbox end. These bins will get you around the engine. That's a 45, that's a 60. and then you got a rubber coupler here, and then you got to turn up to the snorkel. So might be able to make it work with all black. I may end up using up one piece of white, which I would hate to do because you do see it occasionally and it's ugly. This black pipe's lighter, so it doesn't bounce around as much, and it's also pretty heat resistant. So I like the ABS pipe. Got plenty of straight pipe, and this is just all 2-inch stuff. Unfortunately, the one piece I really needed was this, and I ordered it online, and they sent me a 1.5, so that's useless. Maybe if I snorkel another 300 one day, that'll come in handy. But we're also going to do the crankcase vent mod. So from the factory, the crankcase vent comes into the bottom of the airbox and breathes in this pipe sitting there up against the bottom of the air filter right there. It's great unless you sink the bike, and then you can get sand in your oil because it's not a great filter. So I replace it with this setup. This is a uni filter. Got it on eBay. It's a uni 5/8 input filter. This is just a 5/8 barb fitting and some 5/8 silicone heater hose. And I run that straight to the engine right here. And then I put a hole right here in the airbox, melt a hole through with a socket, put a loop inside the airbox, and then have the filter resting up here. That way if I do flip it, I have some good filtration. I'll just get water and oil, shouldn't get too much sand or grit, which is a lot better than the alternative. And having the loop inside the airbox means if the loop rubs on something or gets cut, it's already sealed. A lot of people put the loop right here and it ends up hitting the exhaust shield and they get a cut in the line and they get water in their oil. So it's not been proven if the loop helps, but it definitely doesn't hurt as long as you keep it where the loop's not going to get compromised. If it's already in the airbox, you can't really go wrong. So I put one loop in the airbox. We're also going to extend the vent lines. I ordered this from Partzilla. This is supposed to be OEM Honda vent line. As you can see, the inner diameter is right. The outer diameter is pretty thick compared to the stock stuff, which you can see right here. Here's the stock line. So it's a little different, but it'll work good. This was really expensive. This was like 35 bucks for, I don't know, 10 feet of it or something. So very expensive, but it's worth it to have good lines everywhere. This stuff is what I've been using lately. It's like removes oxidation and improves connections and seal track surfaces. So you take all the relays out and you soak all the contacts and the diodes with this stuff and reinstall, and it helps not have issues in water. I'm going to do the same thing with the front differential connector. You can see right down there, that guy. And that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to do those connections, the only ones that really have problems. And I also have, which fell down here in the YXZ, a 2-inch cap. 2-inch cap is being used to block off this air bladder. You just take off the air bladder and stick that in its spot and tighten it down. Really nice fit. Reason for get rid of the air bladder is this causes a lot of flotation in the rear. You want the front to float, not the back. And I have seen these bladders crack. Usually I put a Rancher 420 IRS rear airbox, which is the best way to delete it. However, you know, Biden's America, you can't get anything. So that airbox is back ordered for 3 weeks. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. It's just as good. It's just not quite as clean. So I'm going to give you some more tips and tricks as I do these mods, but it's probably, I don't know, 2-3 hour job, and I've done it a few times. So it's a good amount of work. I know somebody's going to ask, here's how you get the airbox out. So you remove the air bladder right there. There's two 10 millimeters on it. Loosen the clamp. It comes off. And that's actually part of what mounts the airbox, by the way. Then you got to get to the snorkel, remove the snorkel. So unplug your fuel tank, spark plug wire, and flip all this out of the way. Get the computer out of the way. Flip that all down there. You can let that hang. You can see this is all mounted to the snorkel right now. That's going to go bye-bye. So you got to disconnect that. This is your temp sensor. You got to pull this little clip there, and the snorkel will come out this way. And then loosen up the clamps there, obviously on the snorkel. Remove your air intake temperature sensor, and remove the crankcase breather, which I already did because it's getting replaced with that other hose I showed you a second ago. And once you get all that removed, you're pretty much ready to remove the airbox. Just got to yank the snorkel and fight it out of there. It's kind of a tight fit. Make sure that if you already have deleted your bladder, you take out whatever plug you got. So that's the factory snorkel. Also part of what mounts the airbox, which we're losing. And then you got 2 plastic clips here and here. These pliers are amazing for these plastic clips. They will save you a ton of time. If you do any amount of work on Hondas, highly recommend getting these pliers. People always ask me to put links for stuff like tools and parts. The problem is links expire so fast these days, it's not worth it because I'll put a link and then you're just going to complain the link is wrong. So use your Google skills. I get almost everything on eBay. Go on there and search, you know, Honda plastic fender snap tool or whatever and get it. This is your little bracket for your O2 sensor. Get that out of the way, and then you got to pull these Airbox things up on top of the fender, like so on both sides. Okay, push the Airbox back off the throttle body, and then you're ready to pull it out. See, it's all loose. The reason you're removing the Airbox is because you've got to go through and redo all the connections on it. So I'll show you what I mean. It's kind of a trick to get out of here. Definitely want 2 hands. So dump out, so there's some water in there from Holopal. All of these boots are not sealed on very well. This goop that Honda uses isn't very good, and they'll develop leaks eventually. This one actually looks sealed better than a lot of the other ones I've seen. It probably would be okay, but you see right there, there's no sealant on that spot. So that was gonna leak. Also, this guy right here leaks all the time. See that, where that would torn loose super easily? So you gotta take all the hose clamps off, pull out all these boots, clean them really well, and reinstall them with Ultra Black. A lot of Ultra Black. You gotta fill the crease, put it on the Airbox, pop them in there. They have clocking features so you can see how they go. Line all those up. See? And then you'll be a lot more watertight. So gonna get that going and get that drying, and while the glue dries, I'll do the rest of this stuff. But with the Airbox out of here, you can really get to a lot more things. When you're done with this job, always remember to put this sensor back in and to hook up your crankcase breather. Otherwise, your bike's gonna get swamped as soon as you go in any amount of water. On a lot of my builds, I put the Snorkel, the vents in the headlight pod, because I don't like looking at all the vents all over my Snorkel. I'm probably gonna do that with this one too, because the headlight pod's almost as high, and if you dunk it for a split second, only one you're really gonna have problems with is the gas tank. Just keep water out of your gas. Another thing, if you put your gas tank vent up on your Snorkel and it starts to spit gas out, it'll blow on you. So I might actually put the gas tank vent up inside the Snorkel and all the other vents right here. That's probably what I'll do. Got all the boots removed from the Airbox, and one thing I noticed is this casting on this Airbox has a lot of lips on it. That right there will cause a leak. So I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that's all filed down smooth before I reinstall my boots. Same thing right here. These ways are casted. I mean, if you goop it up real good, it shouldn't matter. But you really want a nice smooth surface. That ring that sits on top of here does most of the sealing. It can't do a very good job if there's shit like that going on. Haven't really noticed this as much on the older Honda Airboxes, so it seems to be a change. Casting on this thing is not pretty. This bottom one's actually not too bad, but it's these 2 top holes. And you gotta remember to cap this if you're gonna do my kind of crankcase breather. Pull out your Airbox and pipes, put them in the sun, let them get really dry. You don't want any moisture getting in there when you're trying to glue it. And then I just took each and every single one of these relays out one at a time, and those little diodes, that little guy down there, and I soaked them with this stuff. And I also did all these diodes. So this is all very corrosion protected. All of those contacts are not waterproof. By that I mean these contacts are protected by O-rings. You don't have to worry about them. These contacts will corrode. If you don't do that, it'll make it really hard to get these relays out later on, and it'll also cause connection issues. So conditioning it when it's new will save you a lot of time down the road. It's easiest to pull it out of the box like this. You just have to go on the back side right here where these little squares are and use your pliers to push in these tabs, and then you can pop them all out. So those are all waterproofed. This connector is waterproofed, and I relocated it up about a foot higher. So electrical waterproofing is done. That's all I needed. That's all you need to do on these Rubicons. That's all I do anyways. All the boots are glued on. The way to do this is to remove them all, start with bottom. You really got to take your time and make sure you work the boot all the way into the groove. Take your fingers in here and push the boot to make sure that it's fully seated. That's a real trick. Then go to this one, do the same thing, and then do your top one. I didn't reseal the grommet for the air intake temperature sensor because it's actually sealed up pretty good, and it's so small it doesn't really make much of a difference because it's rubber to rubber. You can see how it's actually pushed in there all the way. So that's 100% watertight. Put some dielectric grease on there, good to go. Yeah, and it came out really nice. Use a lot of Ultra Black, put a bead on the inside of the box, the outside of the box, a bead in the groove of the boot, and then install it. Wear gloves, it's a messy job. And remember, while you're installing this one and the next one, don't push on the other boots while you're installing it. It takes a good bit of force to get this guy in here. Be careful you don't push one of the other boots in. So that's gonna be 100% watertight. The Airbox lids on these things are really good. I don't even put dielectric grease on them. The ones that have these little extra spring clips, that's 100% watertight. You don't need to do anything else. Do not glue your Airbox lid on, you dumbasses. That makes it impossible to change your air filter. If you bring me your bike to work on and it's glued on, I'm not even gonna touch it. You can deal with that. So there you go. That's the tips and tricks right there. I'm gonna go ahead, put some Ultra Black on this little cap and plug that, and then we're good to go. A lot of the vents are done. Here's the rear diff. So it comes across from the right side over to the left side. We got a T down in there. That tee is from Home Depot. It's a sprinkler tee. Comes through here, drilled a hole here, runs next to the winch line, comes up into here, and I have a tee somewhere. Let me find it. Right here. So it tees in with the front diff, and then it goes up into the pod. This is the coolant overflow. Put a new line there. I use a cheap clear line because you want to be able to see bubbles in there, and it's not as important, but that goes up to here. So there's your coolant overflow. Drill a hole, push that through there. There's your front and rear diff. Got it as high up in this pod as you can, so they're breathing right here. So as long as you don't dunk the pod for too long, you're not really gonna get much water in your diffs. If you do, just change the oil. And this is the fan breather. So this comes up in here, right down to there, and it's the pink purple line up in here that goes to the fan expansion for the fan motor. So that's all Snorkel. The only one I have left to do is the gas tank, the most important one. I'm actually gonna run that up the Snorkel, keep it a little bit higher, and have it point into the Snorkel, so if gas comes out, it'll get pulled into the intake. That's this guy, so this is being left out for now. But those are all the vent lines you do Snorkel on the Rubicon. People do Snorkel this right here. This is your weep hole for your water pump. I've been saying this for a long time. I just pull off this hose and cap it because I've never seen one leak. Never actually done a water pump on a Rubicon. Been around for a long enough time that I'm not worried about it anymore. So I just take this off and I'm just put a little rubber cap guy right there, and that is a done deal. So mostly snorkeled now, just gotta do the actual big intake snorkel. There you go. And fuel tank. And then I'm gonna change all the fluids, do the break-in service. So the trickiest part by far about snorkeling a Foreman 500 or Rancher 420 is the piece that slides into the airbox, down in that hole right there. This is what the factory piece looks like. It's a very weird outer diameter. I haven't found anything that works good for it. The best I've found is to take a 1.5 inch coupler or a piece of 2-inch pipe and grind and sand it down. See, that's a custom piece to fit in there. That's pretty much what you have to do to get that exact outer diameter. And it's gotta be pretty close. It's very picky. So that's what I do. It's a pain in the butt. And then you gotta adapt this, which is a coupler, to 2-inch pipe, which isn't exactly perfect. So any kind of spacer, I'm using a piece of rubber off of one of those clamps I cut in half. You know, that would be like a 1.5 inch adapter. Stretch it over there. It fits pretty good into a 2-inch coupler. So that's watertight seal. All right, guys, there she sits. 28-inch Aztex, snorkeled. Everything else is stock. Something I forgot to mention earlier. That's a black 2-inch ABS cap. It fits in the bottom of the airbox. Delete that secondary bladder that was right here. And I just realized someone put a little battery tender on here. Anyways, that fits there. Fits perfect. And it looks pretty factory. And then I am using adapters. These are Polaris lug pattern because they also fit the YXZ. Those adapters are like 70 bucks on Amazon, 4x110 to 4x156. I also have 4x110 to 4x137 adapters, and that's important because that lets me run Can-Am wheels and all these paddle tires. I'll try that out. The adapters I put are 1.5 inch spacers as well, so they got the offset looking a lot better. These things look so dinky with the stock wheels that sit so far up under the fenders. It looks pretty good on just 28s. This is how this is gonna stay until I get my portal brackets in, and then it gets 6-inch portals and probably 35s on 20s, something like that. But this will go everywhere, and the snorkel came out pretty good. Different way than I usually do it, but I think it's gonna work just fine. Yes, this is really tall. I'll probably cut that down. I always leave them tall, and then they start annoying me and I cut them down, but it is nice to have a snorkel that's super tall. But all my other vents are in here, right? So won't be using it all that much. The tall snorkel's mostly nice when you lean over. You can save it easier. And it looks cool, but of course I'll cut it down. And this snorkel was kind of a pain in the butt. Did it a little different than I usually do, mostly because of the availability of pipes, but you can push right here and you can see that nothing's rubbing, even though I made it come out farther from the engine. There's actually a lot of room between the engine and the side right there. So no problems whatsoever. You can see the snorkel up in there. But yep, it's good to go. Just gotta go put it in the pond and test it out once I let it sit for about another hour for all the pipes to dry.